Hey Wild Tribe, welcome to another episode of Wild Wednesdays. On this episode, I taught making money on basketball when you're not a good player, is your partner cheating on you, and how to move cities for the job that you love. Hey peeps, how are you all doing? Cal here again for Wild Success. Welcome to another edition of Wild Wednesdays where we answer your questions in wellness, income, love, lifestyle, and direction. Let's jump into it today. Ash, over to you, my queen.
Welcome back to Wild Wednesdays, guys, from the voice behind the screen. We've got an abundance of beautiful questions today, so thank you for everyone who shared and contributed their questions. As always, comment below if you have any questions at all, and we'll do our best to endeavor to answer them. First question this week comes from Amy T and is in the area of lifestyle. So Amy asks, how do I deal with bullies in my workplace?
Quit is how you deal, Amy, with bullies in the workplace. No, it's actually a really good question. My mum actually came in this week, didn't she? And she was talking about the same thing. I think that Amy, I appreciate you asking the question. Bullying in the workplace is a real thing. Thankfully, it's not something that we've had an issue with in our culture or our organization. Admittedly, that's probably because of the size of our organization and culture and the fact that we're all family. So it's not bullying, it's just called being family. When I put Jason down, it's actually just for his constructive career development. It's not anything negative. So here's a couple of things I would share with you, Amy. Number one, is it's very important that in the world that we live in today that we don't rush to exaggerated labels. What I mean by that is I see a lot of this happen in the world regarding bullying. I see a lot of this happening with regards to depression and anxiety and traumas, for example. In many cases, it's very easy to categorize feedback as being bullying, when in reality it could just be a bit of constructive criticism. It could just be a bit of tough love. That's not to say that what you're dealing with isn't bullying, but it's just important for us to have the responsibility ourselves to go, cool, am I overreacting here, or am I being quite honest and transparent in my emotional range? That's number one. If you can honestly put your hand up and say, actually, this is just not right. The communication, the dialogue, the interaction, the engagement I'm having is not constructive. It's not done from a place of positivity. It's not done to try and improve the quality of my life. It's actually just nastiness. It's actually just bitchiness. It's actually just being or attempting to sabotage me. Well, then that's something that's an issue. So providing that you have that in place, what I would be looking to do, number one, is I'd be looking to have a conversation with the person that's responsible for this. Most people are unaware of their own behaviors. They're unaware of how they come across emotionally. And, I can tell this from my own experience. I'm a very intense person, and it's taken Ash and I quite a bit of time, because we work together as well as obviously live together. It's taken us a bit of time for Ash to appreciate that when she asks me something and I'm in an intense mode, because that's my natural default mechanism for life, that it's not related to her. It's just, for example, if I'm frustrated by work and she asks me in that moment a question, I'm not frustrated at her, I'm just frustrated, and at the same time I'm speaking to her. Come on in, Sharon. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Sharon here as well.
Hi guys.
Just dropping me off some sparkly water. Come sit in.
No, I'll go.
You sure?
Have fun.
Okay. Shout out to at Sharon Paresis Interiors on Instagram. So it's important to understand that sometimes people's actions and behaviors actually have nothing to do with you. They're just in a negative place and you happen to be around them. It's not an excuse for the behavior, but it is important not to take that personally if it's not intended to be personal. So that's an important awareness. So have that conversation, have that dialogue, be able to provide a feedback mechanism to the person to say, hey, when you talk to me about these specific things, when you said this to me in this way at this time, that's how it made me feel. I just want to get on the same page with you and understand, is that your intentions? Because if it's not your intentions, I just want to know what it is that you were intending so that we can be able to create a better relationship. I would take ownership over the dialogue, and I would, address the unspoken and unsaid things, address the subtext. If the person is actually just being a vindictive bitch, or just being an asshole, and they just don't like you, and they're just a toxic person, well then what happens is you have to do one of two things. Either one, you endure that and you find a way to work around them, or you find a solution to the problem by speaking to somebody that can do something about it. I refuse to tolerate negativity in my life, so I will identify with it or solve it. If it's obviously on my part, I'll deal with that. If it's with regards to somebody else, I'll call them on that. And if we're not being able to work together and there's no willingness, it takes two parties to have obviously that experience. If that doesn't happen, then I'll be moving that person out of my life. Whether that means I need to potentially move jobs, they need to move jobs, we need to speak to somebody about separating us and working in a different team. That needs to happen as part of that process as well. Most people are dealing with problems that you know nothing about though. So I would always assume, until known otherwise, that actually has nothing to do with you. It's about them, and that they're dealing with some sort of personal tragedy in their own lives. Because if you have that mentality, you'll never be really disappointed. It always sets you up for success. So hopefully that helps. And also as well, enrolling and enlisting a sponsor, a support person, a buddy in the workplace, not from a bitchingness perspective, not from a let me gossip to somebody else about someone that's negative in the workplace, because that only creates more of it, but rather having someone that you can speak to in confidence that will give you extra advice, that understands the nuances and the environment around you. I think that's very important.
Awesome. Great response there. The next question comes from Sarah N and is in the area of income. And she prefaces this question with the full understanding that you're not a financial advisor or qualified in any way, shape or form to give financial advice.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah.
However, she
I'm also not an astronaut as well, just so you know.
She would like to know, how does she go about finding an investment opportunity that would do a 10% compounding return?
Okay. Well, look, I can easily answer that question, but it's important to get really clear on why does she want an investment opportunity that would get her 10%. We don't know that for the purpose of this conversation. So here's what I would say. There is no such thing as a good investment or a bad investment. There are investments that may get you to the goals that you have, and there are investments that probably won't get you to the goals that you have. And there are some things that are without question. So I'll give you some simple examples. If you want to retire financially free, if you want to be in a position where you develop and have millions of dollars in assets, being able to put your money in the bank and earning 0.1% or 2% or even 3% in a crazy world on your money, you're never going to get there. The math just simply doesn't stack. So you need to choose a different vehicle than that. Which vehicle you choose, that's completely up to you. Now, the simplest, easiest way for you to look at that, if you want to get a 10% return, and I don't have the exact numbers on me right now, but we could probably bring it up. In fact, let's do that right now, Jace. Can you go online? Just Google what the S&P 500 is. What's the historical average growth of the S&P 500? So I'm not a financial advisor or planner. I do have a double degree in corporate investment finance. And what I can tell you is that the wealthy people in the world make money in one of three ways: through stocks and shares, through property, or through business. They're the three ways the wealthy create wealth. It's really the three only vehicles. There's other speculative investments, but they're three things fundamentally. For most people, we got the numbers?
So, yeah, there's a little sentence there which kind of covers it.
Yeah, awesome. So the S&P was created in 1926. Now, if you don't know, the S&P's is the Standard & Poor's, and basically what it is, it's the top 500 companies in the United States at any moment in time as a ranked index. So let's say, for example, one of the top 500 grows, awesome, the S&P goes up. If one of the top 500 bombs, then the S&P goes down, and then it would be replaced by another company if it went really, really badly. The average annual return since adopting the 500 stocks in 1957 to 2018 has been roughly 8% or 7.96 to be exact. So that means that from 1926 to 2018, it's been growing at 10%, and since it adopted the top 500 stocks, which was in 1957, it's grown at 8% or 7.96%. You know, that means historically, year on year on year on year, the top 500 companies in the US has gone up in value by about 8%. It's not quite the 10% you wanted, but it's pretty close. And that's probably going to be the most stupid version of the investment that you could make. I mean that with real respect, because I want you to understand, buying and selling property, it requires obviously some level of intelligence and understanding. It also requires you to put a lot of money down. building and growing a business requires an abnormally high level of those things, whereas anyone can put money into the stock market, anyone can put money into the S&P 500. Doesn't mean to say everyone's going to make money, but anyone can, and you're not actually involved in the decision-making process. The market is a reflection, it's an index fund, it's not managed, no one's there to take care of that. It just literally goes up and down with those top 500 companies. So if you fundamentally believe, as I do, that the US is going to prosper in the years ahead, then the top 500 companies are going to lead the charge of that. Well, then that's probably a good place for you to have a look at. But likewise, commercial property could probably get you those returns. Some residential property could get you those returns, and certainly business could definitely get you those returns as well. What won't get you those returns is putting money under the mattress. What won't get you those returns is putting money into a savings account. That's just not going to happen. So I'd get clear on why you need a 10% return, but the S&P 500 would probably be the best bet across the board for that. But you should speak to a financial advisor, financial planner, or some form of an astronaut before you make that decision.
Awesome. Next question comes from Josh T in the area of direction. How do you stay focused on your goals when they take so long to get to?
Well, that's called life, Josh. So how do you remain focused on your goals when they take so long to get to? Well, simply put, you want to have big overarching goals for your life. You want to have things that require you to be the best version of yourself every single day. You want to have goals so big you have to become the person capable of achieving those goals, Josh. So in order to do that, well, one, I guess I'm reading from your question that maybe you're losing a bit of momentum and a bit of desire. What I would do is break those goals down into small bite-sized pieces so you've got small milestones along the way to achieve your bigger goals, right? That's very, very important. But also as well, if the bigger goal is compelling enough, then the reality is you're going to go from being in a place where you go, how long is this going to take, to going to a place of how far can I go with this? I'm always constantly stretching myself. I'll never fully get to the goals that we set. I intend to do this for the rest of my life. So I think if you are contemplating like, geez, it's going to take so long to get there, you probably haven't picked the right goals, would be my fundamental answer.
Awesome. Next question is from Rochelle C. and is in the area of love. What is the best way to deal with someone who completely shuts down and won't communicate when upset? And I'm assuming this is in a relationship.
I imagine it is. The best way to communicate to someone that's trying to shut down is one of two options. Option number one, give them space. This is not the natural option that comes with me, by the way, but I can only tell you from our experience of being together with me and my wife that my default mechanism is when I'm upset about something is to fire up. So my energy levels go up, my communication increases, and as does the intensity of that communication. My wife is the complete opposite of that. When she is upset, she shuts down, she doesn't want to talk, she doesn't want to open up. And normally in a relationship, yin and yang, opposites attract. So likely in one relationship, you've got one person that is fiery and one person that shuts down. You have two people that are fiery, it can be just as bad as having two people that shut down. So normally there's a yin and a yang. So two ways of approaching it, and you've got to sort of read the nuances of that situation. Number one is when they need space, when they shut down, when they are upset, it's often because something has hurt them. They've got a pattern of behavior which is to shut down, and they probably need time to process how they feel about a certain situation or circumstance. It's important to give that person that space to do so. It's not, however, an opportunity for them to sulk or go into a space, right? There's a distinction between I need space to process how I feel so I can come back to this conversation, and I'm shutting down because I don't want to talk to you and open up about something. They're very different things. If you're just looking on the outside, though, they look exactly the same, but you need to understand, actually, are they taking space to work on how they feel, or are they just avoiding having the conversation? So I would potentially give them space, but then in a calm space, after the conversation has been had, I would bring the conversation back up and I would communicate what you're looking for from dialogues and conversations in a relationship and what you're looking for from them in such a way that you can actually have that dialogue and conversation. I think that's quite important. So I do that after the fact. And communicate what it is that you're looking for, what you're looking to achieve when you're having a dialogue, and also set the ground rules of how you want to handle arguments and fights. Set that when you're in a calm place so that you know, hey, these are the rules of which we're going to engage with one another when we are upset. This is how we go about doing it. That's one way of doing it. I'm probably the more impatient version of that. And so if we're having an argument and a fight, I will just persist and persist and persist and persist and persist. I'll keep changing my approach. With Ash, I'll be playful, I'll be funny, I'll be direct, I'll be aggressive, I'll do whatever I possibly can to try and get a response, because I know if I get her talking, then at least we can work through things quickly. But that takes a lot of behavioral flexibility to do that. And in many cases, it pisses her off more than it actually solves problems, but eventually we get there. So you got to just try and find what works with your partner. What I will say to you, Rochelle, is this. The meaning of the communication is the response it elicits. So if you communicate something with the intention of getting them to open up and they don't, it's because you need to communicate something different. And also bring awareness to your partner that, hey, just so you know, when we have an argument, this is what you do. You shut down and you run away. And I'm no longer going to allow us to have that happen anymore. When we have an argument, I want us to talk through this as well. I know you feel uncomfortable about it. Deal with it. That's what I want from now on. I think that'll make all the difference. Set those ground rules.
Awesome. Next question comes from Bianca S.
Hey, Bianca.
In the area of income. And Bianca would like to know your insights.
Yes.
I can't earn any more money in my current job. So how can I make more money outside of that?
Okay. Can't earn any more money in your current job, so how can you make more money? So I don't think that's actually accurate. I think that you can always make money in your current job. That might be, by the way, working additional hours or taking on board more responsibilities. I know there are some careers where that is difficult, but I believe that you can always make more money. So one is I always have a mindset of that. But in terms of the flip side of that, well, let's say, for example, you don't want to make any more in your current job. You're happy with the role that you've got and the salary that comes with, but you want to make extra money. Well, there's so many different ways to do that. If it's purely for the purpose of just making extra cash, well, you can go and pick up a second job, a third job, or a fourth job. You can get a part-time job. You can drive Uber Eats. You can drive... you can do deliveries. You can go into Airtasker, for example, or Upwork, for example. You lend your skills and talents out that way, for example. You can start flipping things, buying things on Facebook and Amazon and flipping them, for example, in the marketplace. You can do consulting projects. I mean, there's a million different ways to make more money out there if that's what you're interested in. However, I think probably what's more of a dynamic answer for you is I would identify your passions. And if I've got my primary source of income that's coming through from my normal 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever it is for you, I would then be in my free time, which there's ample of. I would be developing skills and tools and talents around my passions in such a way that allows me to be able to potentially make more money from that in the long term. So I would find a mentor in that space. I would look at what I want to do in terms of my income, and I would start to find ways of working and getting some extra money coming through from that, whether that be on the weekends or after hours. And then I would transition from there so I can have more upside as part of that. I think everyone can be better at sales across the board. Sales is an incredible skill, so I've even picked up a commission-based role in sales.
Great. And moving on to the next question from Jody R. This is in the area of direction. She wants to know how to have a big picture vision and keep all the plates spinning in all of the areas of life and not get overwhelmed. I try to remain calm, but overwhelm and anxiousness creep in.
Yeah, Jody, this is a really common problem. And even just the way you word that made me feel anxious and overwhelmed, because I was like, I can just see you trying to make all those things work together. So a couple of key points here. And I wish we had the whiteboard that could draw this for you, but I'm sure in post-production, Jace will put up a thing around Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow. So if you haven't read a book called Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, I shit you not, that's his actual name. He does an incredible piece around looking at how flow or performance happens in a zone where you've got challenge on one axis and capabilities on another, or skills. And so, Jody, the more skills you have, the more capable you are as a human being, then the more challenges you can take on, obviously. Now, before we look at challenges, let's just identify your skill sets. Your ability to produce and perform and to maximize your individual talents, and therefore to be able to manage overwhelm and obscurity, and your ability to then take on board more risky projects and to push the envelope for yourself, comes not down to your actual abilities, but rather comes down to your perceived abilities in a specific moment. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're tired and hungry, if you're in a position where you're stressed and you're overworked and you're having a fight with your spouse, no matter how skilled or talented you are, those skills are going to fail you because you're not in an environment or not more likely in a state of performance. So you want to make sure you've got morning routines and rituals to set yourself up for success. You want to make sure you're starting to track your sleep. I'm actually not wearing my Oura ring right now, but that's a powerful way of doing it as well. Are you exercising? Are you eating well? All of those things, because they create a deeper foundation, a wider and deeper foundation of performance, which allows you to manage and wear the stresses of life better. That's number one. Number two is obviously constantly developing and working on your talents and skills to get better and better and better at what you're doing. Remember, the Navy SEALs have a methodology, which is you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your lowest level of conditioning. So they train and develop themselves to constantly perform under pressure and stress, not so that they perform in casual environments. They sort of recreate stressful environments in their training to allow them to succeed and thrive. You've got to make sure you microdose that pressure and stress. So that's from the skills perspective. From the challenges perspective, overwhelming is too many things all at the same time. Underwhelming is one boring thing. You've got to modulate and manipulate the level of challenge in your life. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, chunk it down to one thing you can focus on right now. If you're feeling bored, chunk it up to a lot of different things as part of a key project. And what I do in my business, or businesses, is we'll have we call it a 3-1-90 plan. So we'll think about 3 years from now where we want to be, and it's very much just some broad objectives and targets. 1 year from now in terms of a key milestone, and then we'll reverse engineer that again to 90 days. What is our key targets in the next 90 days? And then I'll go again from that 90 days into 13 weekly plans. So every week on a Sunday, I'll look at what the week ahead includes, and all I have to do is make sure my head is focused on the week ahead, because providing that I've done the 3-1-90 right, if I win the week and I win the next week, I win the 13 weeks, I'll achieve the 90 days. If I win that 90 days, then the next 90 days, the next 90 days, the next 90 days, I'll achieve the 1 year. And if I win that 1 year 3 times over, I'll win the 3 years. So that's really what it's about. It's start with the end vision, reverse engineer the process, and then tactically speaking, don't focus on all of the information, just focus on the next step as part of the journey. And I think that'll help you manage that quite well. And probably another great insight for you as well is to write lists. Having them on the whiteboard is very important for me. I'm constantly mapping out priorities that I have to work towards, because what I find for most of us is that when you're trying to balance life and work and everything else, you tend to find that you focus on a couple of things in your head and a little bit overwhelming, and then those things create other almost shadows in your mind where you feel you're actually dealing with 500 things as opposed to just 5 things. So being able to write a list of priorities will give you some confidence and clarity as part of that.
Awesome. Next question comes from Nina A. and is in the area of wellness. I really want to start focusing on my health, but I don't really know where to begin. There seems to be so much out there and it feels way too hard.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you where not to begin. McDonald's. Donuts. Where to begin is understanding that really wellness comes down to a couple of key things. And at Wild Success, we would say that there's 5 key areas of wellness. So you've got your nutrition, you've got your movement, you've got your recovery, you've got your mindset, and you've got your emotions. And so I would look at those 5 key areas, and I would self-regulate based off those 5 key areas. I would consider, where do you want to start? Where is the easiest place for you to start? In the beginning of any challenge or project, whether that be wellness or otherwise, what we're looking for is momentum and progress, not perfection. So it's not about you trying to lose a heap of weight. It's not about you completely transforming your diet. It's not about you taking on board a whole new challenge. It's just about you making some meaningful progress, because if you're in momentum, you're going to keep going, and if you're not, you're not. So I would get started by picking one of those areas, and I would first start by just tracking. You know, the best thing that anyone can do in the beginning from a wellness perspective is just track what they're putting in their body and how they're moving their body and the quality of their emotional health. Those things make all the difference in the world. So whether you're going to download an app like Keystone, for example, or MyFitnessPal, or even just taking a food diary of taking photos, that would be a really meaningful place to start. From an exercise perspective, just writing a list of when you go to the gym, tracking that. There's a great habit tracker called Way of Life. That's a great starting point. Just to create a bit of a baseline, you can create an awareness as well. Obviously for a lot of people, the average woman over 30 puts on 3 kilos of fat every year. She does that normally during the Christmas period. 2/3 of that is during Christmas because people are unaware of what they're eating and drinking. So my recommendation to you would be to start with your health, particularly with regards to your diet. And if that's something that you can easily start with just creating awareness, start by reading some books, and more than anything else is pick one person that you're going to listen to, maximum 2 people, and follow their recipe for success. People find it overwhelming and confusing and conflicting because they have a Frankenstein approach to health and wellness where they have so many different perspectives and insights and they don't actually follow any one person particularly. And I've been guilty of that in my own life. So just pick one person, listen to them and follow their protocol. It's better to execute a poor program really well than to half-ass 10 really great programs. So pick one really good one. And if you're interested or need some guidance or support, more than happy to offer you a wellness coaching session with our team. They'll be able to help you organize a wellness plan as well. We've got a heap of resources in that.
Great one. All right, coming through from Matt F in the area of love is I found a girl that I really like, but part of me wants to say single because I enjoy getting attention from women. Are relationships actually worth it?
Yes, they are. That's the simple answer, Matt. Look, here's the thing. The irony of this is that actually, and I'm sure Jace would probably agree with me on this, you actually get more attention when you're in a relationship than you do when you're single. So if you want attention, being in a relationship is probably the best thing that you can do because naturally people want what they can't have. Just that goes without saying. But I think it's important for you to be aware of where you're at in your life. What I would say is this. Everyone always thinks that the grass is greener. Everyone wants what they don't have. So people that are employed want to run their own business, and people that run their own business just want to work and have the less pressure and stress. People that are single want to be in a relationship, and people that are in a relationship often want to be single. What I would say to you is that don't put so much emphasis and pressure on the end of this all, but rather just focus on being present in the moment. The reality is if you've got a great woman in your life, or for ladies, you got a great guy or vice versa, whatever it looks like for you. If you've got that, don't second guess that shit. Don't self-sabotage that by thinking about what you might want in the future. If you're enjoying being in a relationship right now with this person, then be in a relationship with this person. And wherever that goes, that's where that goes. Don't put all this pressure on or think you're going to be losing out on something in particular because at the end of the day, why do you want the attention? So you can create a deeper relationship. You can create a deeper relationship so you can have a life with somebody that makes you feel special, that you can create an incredible life together. So, if this person is a keeper for all intents and purposes in the short term and the long term, then keep going on that path. I can tell you one thing for damn sure, and that is this. That without a shadow of a doubt, I've got friends with relationships. I've got people that have without relationships. I've got friends of mine that have had, dozens of partners, and I've got friends of mine that have had 1 or 2 partners. What I can tell you is that the overall quality of your life is not really related to how many women or how many men you sleep with. But what I can tell you is that there is a dramatic, and I'm talking light and day difference between the people that I know that are successful and the people that are not. And one thing I can say almost universally is that the men and women that get to the top of the pyramid, the ones that get there and stay there, the ones that have an incredible quality of life, all have one thing in common, and that is that they have a committed partner in their lives that uplift them, inspire them, challenge them, and make them the best of who they are. Success requires sacrifice. Success does require sacrifice. It requires you to sacrifice potentially a lot of attention for the attention of one person, but the skill that you develop, the man that you become by having one committed partner for a long time, the depth of character that develops for you pays a dividend in every other area of your life that is unimaginable. So for me, it's just simply never something I would ever imagine is not being in a long-term committed relationship with someone that was remarkable. But if you're not with that person, find that person.
Awesome. We've got a few more coming through here. So the next one comes from Jane C.
Hey, Jane.
I think something is holding me back from living the life I want, but I can't really identify what it is. What can I do to try and identify this? And that would be in the area, I guess, of direction.
Yeah, awesome. So, Jane, the great question. And by the way, we have some great videos on this that you should go ahead and check out on YouTube and on Facebook. When we think about this, we talk about the WILD method. And the WILD method is very simple. I'll give you the overview here, and this will hopefully identify for you what, if maybe all, is missing. First key part, if you're going to have direction and purpose in your life, is you've got to have a compelling vision. So do you know what you really want in your life in the next 10, 20, 30 years from now? That's not an easy question to answer, but also as well, admittedly, most people never even try. So if you have clarity and you know what you want, but you're holding yourself back, maybe it's the second part. The second part is internal alignment. Most nearly all of what holds us back comes down to 5 things. We talk quite extensively on 4 of these. The 5th one is something that we really only talk with our higher end clients, masterminds or live events. But beliefs, emotions, behaviors, and focus. Do you believe it's possible for you to achieve the goals you have? So that's number 1. Number 2 is, do you have behaviors that are in alignment? Number 3 is, are your emotions positive and not negative? And finally, are you focused on what you want or what you don't want? And then the 5th one is values. Is your life actually a reflection of the values that you need to have rather than the values that you've got right now? So if you feel as though you have clarity, but you're sort of stepping 1 step forward and 2 steps back, I can almost guarantee you that you've got a values conflict, a belief conflict, emotional conflict, a behavioral conflict, or some sort of a focus conflict. If you can resolve those, you'll have internal alignment, you'll take action. And the 5th thing that, the 3rd key thing that might be holding you back is proven strategy. Maybe you're taking a lot of action, but you just don't actually know what you're doing, and so you're making it harder than it needs to be. In my experience, most people suffer from all 3. They lack a vision, they don't have alignment, and they don't have a strategy. So we can help you if you're in that place. But I just want you to know they're the things that I would do to get started. If you're completely lost and you're at the very beginning where you don't have that vision for your life and you're looking for clarity and direction, you're not going to find it where you are. Einstein said it so beautifully. He says, you will not solve the problems you have today with the same level of thinking that created them. So my recommendation to you, which is exactly what I have done many times in my life when I've lacked that vision, is to grab a backpack and the little bit of money you've got and go and travel the world. You don't need money to travel. It's one of the biggest myths and lies of our generation. Get yourself to India, get yourself to Africa, get yourself to the Middle East, get yourself to Europe. I'm not talking about going to a pub. I'm talking about going and living in culture, to go and see different parts of the world. And I find that anytime I do that, I come back a very different place. I learn more about myself because I put myself in that environment. So if you're lacking direction, go travel. You'll figure it out.
Awesome. Next one is in the area of income and comes through from Kareem AJ. I love playing basketball and I love watching it. I love learning about it and I love writing about it. Is it possible to turn this into a business or career if I'm not really the best player?
Okay, so why are you laughing? So you're not that good at basketball, but you really like basketball.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So if you suck at basketball, you probably shouldn't play basketball, right? That said, I believe you make money doing anything, right? I really do believe that. So from a marketing perspective, can you get out there and make things happen? Yes, you can. Do you have skill sets that maybe you know a little bit more about than somebody else? Yeah, you can. Look, from a traditional perspective, if you're not great at basketball, you're not going to make money playing basketball, but there's so much around the subject of basketball that you can make a lot of money doing, right? YouTube and Instagram, there's short courses on basketball skills. You could easily make 6 figures just showing people how to shoot 3-pointers and improving their 3-point accuracy. I mean, that's definitely a niche that you could do well with. There's a heap of people online that teach basketball already. There's actually one of our partners, Kim, has a colleague that has a YouTube show teaching people how to get better at skills in basketball and makes lots and lots and lots of money on YouTube doing that. So I mean that horse is already sort of bolted, but you could definitely do things in that space. You could make multiple 6 figures just selling basketball merchandise and memorabilia. There are businesses that do that. So there's so much that you could do in that space. You could have one of my buddies here, actually Aaron Ford in Perth, who used to work with Nike. We did some work in the very beginning of my business together. He used to do speaking gigs for the Wildcats here in Perth, who was the MC. Created a relationship with some of the stars, then created a relationship through Nike with some of the stars in the US, and would organize basketball trips where he would take clients. I think it's called Hype Tours, so shout out to Aaron. He would do Hype Tours and we'll put up the link for the guys there as well, where he would take business owners from Australia over to the US to go and meet with Kobe and LeBron and some of the top players over there, and do tours and get them to show stadiums and meet with the general manager of the Lakers, for example. He used to organize these tours. So there's so many different ways of you creating income around that. You're probably not going to make $35 million a season like LeBron does, but you'll make good money doing what you love. And you know what? Even if you're making less money, you could definitely find a way to make net the same by doing that, as opposed to doing admin for Rio Tinto and wanting to call in sick every single day. So yes, it's absolutely possible. Find someone that's already doing similar stuff. Find a way to add more value to the marketplace than anybody else. Get a good business model behind you. Get exposure, and I'm sure you'll find a way.
Awesome. Next question is from Helen W. and is in the area of love. I think my partner is cheating on me, but I don't know how to address it as I don't have any proof. What the hell do I do?
Shit. Okay. So that's a good question. We're getting some meaty questions here. So, Helen, I don't know enough about your circumstances to go too deep here. But what I do know is that if you have a feeling that your partner is cheating, I would just get you to consider why it is that you think that is happening. Like, what is it that you think? If you don't have any evidence of this, what is it? Where in your mind have you linked these things to my partner's cheating? Because the reality is that if you looked at any behavior from a place of I think my partner's cheating, it's very easy to find evidence that it's actually related to validate your own preconceived story, right? So, for example, if I'm working late at the office because I'm working late at the office, and you think you've got a dynamic where it's like, oh, I think my partner's cheating, it's easy for you to think, well, those two things must be related. When in reality, if you've got a story that you tell yourself that my husband's loyal and he wants to provide for our family, well, now that me working late at the office validates that story. So I think it's very important to understand that at some point, somewhere along the line, you've come up with this idea. Now, you might be right, by the way. You also might be wrong. So just being aware of that, I think it's important. I think honesty is the best medicine. I think being open and honest and transparent is essential, because I don't know how long you've been thinking this, but if it's been longer than immediately in this moment when you thought I'm going to ask this question to Calvin, then it's probably been too long. So I would be open and honest with my partner, and I would say, hey, I want to have a conversation with you about something that's been on my mind. And I'm probably crazy, but I just wanted to have this dialogue with you, and I just want to be open and say, hey, I'm concerned that there's been some shifts and changes in our relationship. These behaviors to me, I don't want to make the wrong thing. I don't want you to take offense, but I want to be open with you, and I just want to know, is there anything I need to know? Are you having an affair? Let's have this conversation. You might be right, to which case you're going to then have to deal with the consequences of being right. I hope you're wrong, but then you need to deal with the consequences of why it is that you thought that he was and maybe he isn't. But it's always better to have an honest conversation in your head, an honest conversation with your partner, to be able to know yes or no. And here's the thing: when you have that conversation with your partner, you will know if they are telling you the truth or not. You don't need any evidence after you've asked the question, but you've also got to be aware as well that if you are wrong, then they're going to naturally be quite upset and offended and quite hurt by that accusation. That is better, by the way. It is better to deal with that than it is for you to constantly fester on this idea and it be playing in the back of your mind, because one of two things will happen. One, you're going to continue to create this sort of toxic dynamic in your own mind that's going to poison your emotional spirit. Or number two is that you are right. It's going to take you another 12 months before you realize it, and you're going to be kicking yourself that you should have trusted your gut earlier and asked the question. So ask the question. Be open and honest. Don't come from an accusatory, is that the word? Accusatory place. Come instead from a place of saying, baby, I'm sorry I'm even having to ask this question, but I have a gut feeling and I just want to ask you what's going on here. And I hope that you're wrong, but if you are right, it's better to know that you're right now than it is for you to know that you're right 12 or 18 months after the fact, because not only do you not get to learn, but also, too, you don't get to develop the strength in your own gut more than anything else. And aside from all of that, if your partner has cheated, how is that a reflection of your behavior? That might not be what you want to hear right now, but the reality is that people that are loved and respected and supported and nurtured and are challenged and excited and stimulated and inspired in a relationship, people that are in a relationship that is incredible, that have their cup full, don't go anywhere else. That's just the reality in life. Look at it from a job perspective. Someone that's paid really, really well, loves the job, loves the team, loves the dynamic, loves the employment, loves everything about working for that company, and not even looking for other jobs. And when another job is offered, they go, thank you, but no thank you. I'm so happy where I am right now, right? That's just the way that the world works from an economic perspective. Same thing happens in a relationship. So I'm not saying that it's your fault if he has done something wrong or vice versa, but what I am saying is that you've got to take some ownership over that. What do you need to do differently as a partner or as a wife to make sure that never happens again in your next relationship? Some of that might be selection. Some of that also might be showing up for your partner as well. So I would be taking full ownership over that personally to make sure that I learn what I needed to do differently, because at some point in time, I was no longer doing what I needed to do for my partner. As much as they need to take ownership over that, you also need to do the same as well.
Powerful response. We've got a couple more here and then we'll wrap up. So the next one comes from Michael B. My parents want me to go to uni and finish a degree, but I want to focus on my career as a singer. What should I do?
Sing, baby. Sing. That's it. Sing. Don't give a fuck. The reality is you get one, no joke intended here, you get one shot, one opportunity to see if you ever wanted. Will you capture it or let it slip? You don't always have the opportunity to go back to singing, but you do always have the opportunity to get a degree. So here's the thing. A degree, in terms of the traditional education system, the value of that is dropping dramatically. The ability to become talented and skilled and have an incredible life, that's indexing up right now. So I think that if you're serious and you've got talent, you should go all chips in on that. And if you fail at that, because it doesn't work, you can always go back to the traditional mediums, then the other way around. If you give up on your dreams of singing, and ultimately, to be fair to you, Michael, as well, you probably could do both. Like, I've been at uni. You do virtually nothing. Like, the contact hours are non-existent. You could do it via correspondence. But, there's little to no value in doing a uni degree for the purpose of appeasing your parents, because it's not their life and it's not their education and probably not even their money. So, if you're going to have to do it, you do it on your own terms. And if you are going to go to uni for singing, because if you think you've got what it takes and you're not just being, you're just selling yourself in your own Kool-Aid, if you think that's the case, you should back yourself 100%.
Awesome. And last one for this week's episode of Wild Wednesdays comes from Sam B in the area of lifestyle. And this question is, what are some tips to build a new tribe? I love the people around me, but everyone seems negative about my prospects of building a business where I live. I'm getting mentoring, but I miss a community that supports me too.
Yeah, awesome. Sam, you remind me of another one of our clients, Eleanor. So, Eleanor, if you're out there, shout out to you, babe, as well. So, here's the thing. There's negative people and then there's just realistic people. So, I'll give you an example. We've got a client of ours, Sarah, who used to live in Mount Isa, which is rural Queensland? Mount Isa? Yeah. And I don't know if we've got many clients from Mount Isa, but it's not a hip happening place. It's not New York City, baby, okay? So Sarah moved from Mount Isa to put herself in proximity in Townsville, bigger community, bigger opportunities, more dynamic. Why do you think that most people in the world today, most young people, will move to capital cities? Because that's where the jobs and the opportunity and the wealth is going to be created. So I think it's something like 80% of the world's population by 2040 will be in capital cities, right? That's because that's where people are going to live. That's going to be the hubs, economic hubs. So in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases, that's the realities of the world that we live in. And you can either see that their feedback from you is negative, or you can see it as a call to arms to play a bigger game. I still remember, baby, do you remember this conversation we had with Brett Jones? Shout out to Brett from Relationship Warriors, who came and saw me in Mandurah, where he lives with his wife and his children, and told me point blank, he says, you're too good to be here. You need to be going and doing stuff in the United States. So I appreciate his point. It's not a negative point, but the reality is it's a positive point, And that is that actually you are capable of playing a bigger game, therefore you should go and play a bigger game in a bigger environment. You should level up your environment around you. So I think that's positive. Sometimes the message that we need to hear just comes across in the wrong way, but it's still the right message. So sometimes we do need to move. Sometimes you do need to go and put yourself in a better dynamic and in better proximity. But outside of that, all of those things being considered, the reality is we've been able to build a multi-million-dollar company in the most isolated capital city on the planet. So there's no fucking excuse. If you want to be successful, you'll be successful. If you don't want to be, you won't be. But I want you to understand that whilst I am in the most isolated capital city here in Perth, and it's a beautiful city to be in, we travel an absolute shitload, and my life would be way easier if I lived in Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane, or if I lived in Los Angeles or New York City. We'd make more money, I'd have an easier life. However, we'd also lose family, so it comes with a trade-off, so I'm happy to travel because the quality of the time that we get to spend with our family here in Perth is pretty magnificent. So, hopefully that gives you a bit of context around the question. However, to answer your question specifically, my two closest friends, outside of the team that we have, are Simon and Karim, and they both live in Melbourne, and I reckon I would see them, maybe half a dozen times a year, 6 times a year, maybe face-to-face, more likely probably 4 times a year, because we're not in Melbourne all the time. But I would speak to them online nearly every day. I would call them most times a week, and we have a relationship where I'm very rarely out of their thoughts as they are out of mine. So, I don't need to necessarily live next door to them to be in their tribe, but you can create a tribe by going where that tribe is going to be. And, there's something special about being a person that made a trip to get somewhere to be part of the community. So, for example, you might be living, to give you an example, maybe you live on the Sunshine Coast, for example, which is a great territory for us. Travel to Sydney for events and for networking, for business opportunities. Why not? You can. We live in a world where that's possible. Travel to Europe for opportunities. Travel to the US for opportunities. Put yourself out there. Start building a relationship with other people as well. The reality is you're going to be traveling anyway. You can travel for opportunities. You can travel for family. So, ask yourself, where is going to be the best place for me to live my life? And then if you're living your best life, I believe your business will flourish as a result of that. Don't go, where's the best place for my business? And I'm going to fit my life around it. That's not how I live. I go, where's the best place for me to live? Which is where we live now, and then I'm going to fit my business around that. If I need to travel, I travel.
Awesome. So that was the last question for the week.
Gangster. Appreciate it, peeps. We're in WeWork right now, which is pretty special. I'm about to go and kick Jason's ass again in another game of ping pong. I'm undefeated today. So just dominating as I do in every area of life. Appreciate everybody. I've got some good questions today. Some good questions.
Yeah, it was awesome. We've been running for over 45 minutes, so well done, guys.
Oh.
Feel free to post, comment any questions that you want the team to answer over the next few weeks. Make sure you comment them below because we're always looking for new content. So, yeah.
We're going to be doing the show next week from Sydney.
Yeah, we will be.
Probably do it in the Virgin Lounge.
Yeah.
Before we get on the road.
I don't think so. No? That'll be at 5:40 a.m.
Oh, no, I was meaning when we land in Sydney. Anyway, we'll figure it out in some capacity.
We will be back though. Yeah. With a vengeance.
We're going to be doing some cool stuff. What happen over the next couple of weeks for everyone that's watching?
What have we got happening?
Yeah.
We're doing a retreat in the Hunter Valley. We're heading over to Byron Bay for a wellness masterclass and also for our wild mentoring tribe as well. So that's going to be amazing. And then we're back in Perth for a couple of weeks before we head off for, I think it's about 8 weeks on the road.
Yeah, we've got Self-Mastery in Perth, Self-Mastery in Sunshine Coast, and Self-Mastery in Auckland, which is going to be huge. Hawaii, which is going to be massive. And then we've got a 5-city tour of the US, baby. So some big things happening as well. Make sure you hit us up. Go to wildsuccess.global on the interwebs. And until we see you again, live or online, be bold, have fun, make an impact. And I'll see you, boom, on the wild side. Okay, that's it for another episode of Wild Wednesdays, peeps. I hope you absolutely loved it. Make sure you send us some questions for next week's episode. We'll give you a shout out, of course, as we go. And I can't wait to see you live or online. Be bold, have fun, make an impact, and I'll see you on the wild side.